This talk is about using a hashtag, how teachers use a hashtag, and the community that they've built around it. So it is about language teachers, because they are language teachers, but it's about more than that. So I probably don't need to tell you this, but some of the things that have been said about benefits of Twitter for educators include developing a community and support and connection between them. And some of the drawbacks that have been indicated include time-consuming, the fact that it's distractive, addictive, and then the issues about privacy. So, as training funds continue to dry up, certainly in the context of the UK, in other places as well, teachers are looking for professional development in other ways. Also, in many places, particularly schools, continuous professional development mostly consists of someone coming over to the school, talking to someone for an hour, and that's that done. So teachers are using Twitter to share ideas and resources, to engage in conversations, and these communities are formed by following like-minded people and engaging with them. Teachers appreciate the lack of cost, the flexibility, the accessibility, and the relevance, where they can use things like hashtags to target what they're wanting to look into. Some studies have mentioned this kind of work as effective tool for professional development, and also have highlighted the idea of connecting newly qualified teachers with more experienced teachers who then can learn from one another. So I wanted to explore the concept of community of practice as a group of people who share a concern, a set of problems, or a passion about a topic, who deepen their knowledge and expertise by interacting with one another, and the idea that's been explored that Twitter can enhance this idea of a community of practice. So, because I'm a language teacher, I'm a senior lecturer in Spanish at the Open University. I'm interested in language learning, and I noticed there was a hashtag that kept coming up, which was the MFL Twitterati. So MFL stands for Modern Foreign Languages, which is in the UK how we normally refer to teaching languages. And the MFL Twitterati was a hashtag that kept coming up. So I looked a bit more into it. It was created by Joe Dale, who is a language expert and technology expert. Started being used around 2008. And there was a lot of activity with that hashtag, where people are sharing lots of resources, sometimes also moments of despair, and all sorts. There is a list on Twitter with over 1,000 members, but a lot of people that are not on the list also use the hashtag, as this become more and more popular among language teachers, mainly, although some learners as well. So I wanted to know, who are these people who use this hashtag for in their tweets? Can Twitter engagement continue to continuous professional development? And are this group of people that meet around the hashtag a community of practice? So evidence of community of practice includes mutual engagement with members, joint enterprise, and shared repertoire. So I wanted to look for evidence that this was happening to be able to define the community of people that, I want to say community, the group of people that are using the hashtag, can they be defined as a community or not? So what I did is I created a survey with 22 questions, and because I wanted to look at the practices of people who are using Twitter, I only shared the survey on Twitter. So only people who were on Twitter and checking the hashtag, because the survey went with the hashtag, would indeed take part. I ran it for 2 months at the back end of 2014, 120 responses, took out 4 that, there's always some people that fill in surveys that, perhaps inappropriately might be the word. And what I also did, which I've never heard of anyone do it before, but correct me if I'm wrong, is in the survey I asked people if they were willing to take part in, because obviously this gave me the quantitative data, and I wanted to know if there was some qualitative data that I could get. So I asked them in the survey, would you be willing to take part in an interview? So what I did was I carried out those interviews by direct message directly on Twitter. So I asked those people for their handle, so I could follow them, they could follow me, and then I did. I had a set of 10 questions that were exactly the same for everyone who took part in the interviews, and did this by direct messaging. So there was the principles of epistolary interviews is when people do it by letter or by email instead of doing interviews face to face. And basically, I just adapted that concept to Twitter and direct messaging. The advantages of this were obviously people could do it anytime, any place. I didn't have to spend ages trying to arrange this, record interviews, transcribe them, etc. So everything they said was there. Nowadays, there's no 140 character limit on messages. Actually, when I did it, there was still that there, but I said to them they could write as many messages as they liked, so as not to limit that. However, because people are used to writing on Twitter in a very concise way, it meant that I actually got really, really focused responses, which was really helpful. And I also, from an ethical point of view, I didn't have to have their email address, telephone number, anything other than their handle, which sometimes is indicative of someone's name or gender or whatever, but sometimes they really are not. So in that sense, I felt ethically it worked really well. So who are these MFL Twitterati who use this hashtag to support one another, to share resources? They're female. And although this may be surprising, if you actually look at the profiles of language teachers are, a vast majority of them are female. So it makes sense that this, what may seem like a really extreme gender imbalance, actually made sense for the profession. And where do they teach? They're mostly school teachers. As you can see, very few independent universities, but the vast majority are school teachers. And based in the UK. Part of the reason why I think they're mostly based in the UK is because the term MFL is actually used mostly in the UK. So that would mean that people looking for MFL would be mostly UK based. So how do they use the hashtag? Wanted to know how they came across this hashtag. Most people noticed it in tweets from other people, so they just like I found it by noticing that there were lots of tweets to do with languages that had this hashtag. Some read about it because there's been some newspaper articles. Joe Dale, who created the hashtag, has written for The Guardian on a number of occasions in their education section, and quite a few by personal recommendation, which suggests that people who are talking about it and are talking positively about it, since people kind of become involved with it. Most people have been using it for quite a while, although you do get newer members who come to start interacting with the hashtag, and a lot of them then incorporate it into their tweeting practices. So, as you can see, a high proportion actually have tweeted with the hashtag. I asked them if they actually check the hashtag, which is kind of actively, clicking on the hashtag to see what's being said. As you can see, very positively. I personally hardly ever. I mean, I would do, for example, at this conference, I'm checking the hashtag, but normally I don't check hashtags. They just kind of pop up in my timeline. So I was quite surprised at how many people actively were searching for the hashtag and making sure that they kept up with it. So there had been a very informal and initial thing that the creator of the hashtag, Jodel, had done of just asking people, describe the MFL Twitter app in one word, and a number of words had come up. So I took the most popular words that had come up of that initial informal survey and asked participants to select 3 that they most agreed with. And as you can see, sharing ideas is the big one. Inspiration, CPD, and then you have support, sharing resources. So in terms of impact on their practice, a vast majority of those surveyed actually have recommended using the hashtag to other teachers, and what's most important, they've actually used the resources they've come across because of the hashtag in their teaching. Now, I'm sure a lot of us, see interesting resources, see interesting links, click on it and go, oh, that's a good idea. But from that to actually implementing in the classroom, there's a huge step. And I was very, very positively surprised by this. People are actually taking the suggestions, the materials that others tweet and send out, and actually incorporating them. There's lots of lesson plans, ideas, or a link to an interesting video, article, sound, etc. Likewise, there's similarly not only the actual resources, but the suggestions on how to, a good way of introducing this particular grammar point or whatever is through this game or this activity. And as you can see, a huge number of people actually trying out. So it's not about just sharing ideas, it's actually having an effect on their professional practice. So they may have done these things, and it may work or it may not have worked, but actually they do think that their teaching has improved because of the hashtag. So we see the hashtag as having a huge effect on what these teachers are doing. And here are some lovely quotes of people talking about inspiration, confidence, creativity, support. These are the kind of things, thinking outside the box, these are the kind of things that, if you run a CPD session somewhere, these are the kind of things that you would want the participants to be feeding back. And I don't know about you, but I don't know many CPD sessions that manage to tick all these boxes. So it was really, really pleasant to see this, and a real kind of eye-opener in terms of people really engaging through Twitter. So these are people that are all over the country. Many of them have never met, although some have developed friendships through this community. So we were the original questions I had for my research is, who are these people? And we've got a picture of who the people are who are engaging with the hashtag in this way. Wanted to know if it can be considered, can it provide continuous professional development? And I think we've got evidence of definitely people saying that they're developing professionally, this has an impact on their teaching in terms of use of resources, in terms of trying out ideas. And then Sorry, this one is actually from a separate presentation. So, and then we had the idea of, is it a community of practice? So if we go by the definition of community of practice as being people with the same goal, sharing, and with a set of resources that they share as well, share goals, etc. I think we can very conclusively say, yes, actually people are developing, these teachers in this particular example are developing a community of practice through the use of a hashtag. I'm thinking, although I haven't done it yet, I may follow this up by looking at the LTHE chat as a completely separate network that are also brought together by a hashtag, and also trying to replicate the study to see if it can be an appropriate method of, if the validity of the methodology works in terms of applying it to a completely different context. The thing is that a lot of the LTHE people aren't teachers, but they may be implementing it into their professional activity rather than in their teaching. So I think it's really interesting to see that Twitter is, in fact, having an effect in terms of continuous professional development for a number of teachers. A lot of whom, for example, for language teachers, I got quite a few responses that said things like, I'm the only German teacher in my school. I have no one to talk to about ideas, finding other resources, etc. So it's removing the isolation from people who are doing jobs all over the country, in this case it's mostly UK based, and bringing them together, providing that kind of global staff room that they wouldn't get otherwise through Twitter. And that is me. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.